goodness gracious, we gotta get rid of that. Greetings, everybody. Greetings. Where is it at? There we go. Greetings, everybody. Keith here. Hoping everybody's having a good day, enjoying life, living life, loving life. Wanted to come up tonight and do a little review of a Federal Reserve Circular Number 1 that came out September 1st of 2023 here. It's got some definitions and stuff that we're going to go over to kind of help people figure out what their position is in this banking system. So we're going to pull that up. And in the meantime, greetings everybody. The StreamYard link is down there for anybody that wants to come join the panel and discuss this. And let's get with it. What we have before us is the Federal Reserve Financial Services. Notice that is financial services. It is a service. Federal Reserve Bank's Operating Circular Number 1, Account Relationships. Now this part here is going to tell us about the introduction, account relationships, definitions, master account. Oops, go back up here. Master account. And if you remember, I did a series of videos on the master trust account, reconciling the master trust account. And so when we're talking about these services, we're actually talking about the Global Postal Trust Services. Now, how does the Federal Reserve Financial Services relate to the Global Postal Trust Services? Because everything in their accounts is a posting of events. That's what postal means. So you go to the bank and you post something to an account. And that master account, each Federal Reserve Bank has a master account itself from the International Monetary Fund. Now, the Federal Reserve Banks are 12 of them. And then as an extension of those 12 Federal Reserve Banks, which is the Federal Reserve System itself, then has subsidiaries in each state known as public banks. You know, your U.S. Bank and Bank America and all of your little Lincoln Savings Bank and your credit unions and all of that. Those are all part of that banking system. Let's see here. When we go down, we're going to go introduction, and it says this operating circular and its appendices set forth the terms under which a financial institution may request to open, maintain, and terminate a master account with its administrative reserve bank. This is the Federal Reserve Bank. Okay, the administrative reserve bank. That's the Federal Reserve System has administrative reserve banks. And they're not issuing United States notes, which would be the national currency. They're issuing Federal Reserve notes, which is a reserve currency. Okay. It also contains general provisions regarding financial services applicable to any financial institution, whether or not it maintains a master account at a Federal Reserve Bank. Okay. So what you do is you go down to one of these other banks that has a master account with the reserve banks and you open a sub account. The circular describes the tools that an account holder may utilize to segregate, report, and settle debt and credit transaction activity in its master account. So you as an account holder have an account that the bank can utilize to segregate, report, and settle debt and credit transaction activity in its master account, and includes terms and conditions applicable to the relationship the account holder may have as a correspondent with other separately chartered financial institutions as respondents. Okay. So when you're regarded as a federal or a financial institution as an account holder, and that last statement speaks about being separately chartered financial institutions as respondents. So you've got a family household and you have your account, and then you have other respondents that you might have sub accounts under. So therefore you would have a main account or a master account for your household, but that's not a master account for the bank. You're still just an account holder. So let's get back into it. This circular also incorporates additional terms applicable to settlement procedures, statement and accounting information services, overdraft policies, and the Federal Reserve Bank response program for unauthorized access to sensitive consumer information obtained in the course of providing financial services. A master account is subject to other applicable Federal Reserve regulations and policies relating to accounts maintained at reserve banks, such as Regulation D, Reserve Requirements of Depository Institutions, 12 CFR 204, and the Federal Reserve Policy Statement on Payment System Risks, as they may be revised from time to time. Other types of reserve bank accounts may be offered from time to time for the purpose of facilitating monetary policy goals, such as an excess balance account and term deposit facility accounts. These other types of reserve bank accounts are not master accounts and are established by executing separate account agreements and other required documentation with eligible financial institution and its ARB. So the eligible financial institution is the bank, and its reserve bank, the administrative reserve bank, is the Federal Reserve Bank for that district. And these other types of reserve bank accounts are what you're getting. You're getting excess balance accounts and term deposit facility accounts. The reserve banks generally maintain no more than one debtor-creditor relationship with the financial institution. So they have a financial or a debtor-creditor relationship with each bank. And then each bank has a debtor-creditor relationship with you. Under this structure, an account holder may only maintain a single master account with its master administrative reserve bank unless a specific exception applies as described in section 2.3. Additionally, an account holder may act as a correspondent by authorizing its administrative reserve bank to settle certain transactions of respondents in its master trust account. A financial institution's Administrative Reserve Bank administers all aspects of Federal Reserve account management through an account holder's master account, including balance, administration, overnight overdraft monitoring, daylight overdraft monitoring, and discount window access. Discount window access. This is telling us that they cut off the discount window from you. They're saying you don't have access to the discount window, and you have to go through that bank. Definitions. For purposes of this circular, the following definitions apply. Account holder means a financial institution that has opened and maintains a master account with its administrative reserve bank or any other reserve bank maintaining a master account identified in Section 2.3. So the Social Security account, folks, means you're an account holder. That's a financial institution. Social Security authorized you to act as a financial institution. They allowed you to act as a correspondent or respondent of a financial institution. They authorized you to perform the same functions. Administrative Reserve Bank means the Reserve Bank in the Federal Reserve District in which the financial institution is located. That Social Security card, on the back of that Social Security card, it's going to start out with a letter. The letter is going to be A through L. 1, 2, 3, 4. One, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L. That's a Federal Reserve master account. Okay? As determined under the procedure described in 12 CFR Part 204, even if the financial institution is not otherwise subject to that chapter, or if the financial institution maintains an account on the books of a different reserve bank. See also Section 2.5. Board of Governors means the Board of Governors of the Federal Reserve System. Consumer means a natural person who maintains an account with or obtains financial services from a financial institution. Correspondent means a financial institution that has authorized a reserve bank to settle debit and credit transaction activity to its master account for a respondent or for any financial institution for which the respondent acts as correspondent. You see the loop there? Does anybody see the loop that we saw in the abuse or threatened abuse means the same as the use or threatened use of the law or legal system? What we're seeing here is the same thing. You're a correspondent, you're a respondent, you're a financial institution, you're an account holder, and you have just a regular account and a master account. And I'll give you a clue, folks. This whole system of accounting is a matter of trust accounts, like I've expressed before, in that mom creates the extension of an accounting of a trust account. That's what's created when you're born. It's the extension of a continuing trust in a public setting. And nobody's correcting it to a private trust. Nobody's removing those confidential data elements that keep harming us. And it's because we've been taught to just turn our banking over to these professionals. Or two, that maintains a balance to satisfy the reserve balance requirement as defined in Regulation D for one or more financial institutions in its master account. The balance to satisfy the reserve balance requirement. That's 1/10. So if you go in and you deposit $1,000 into a bank, the bank's going to deposit $100 of that and use 900 as an investment to loan out to someone else. That's 10%. Debit and credit transaction activity refers to any debits and credits, including service charges, associated with a primary or secondary RTN, routing transit number, and that settle in a financial institution's master account. That settle, does that sound like something settled and went to the bottom? Let me talk about this routing transit number. You've heard me speak about freedom of transit is guaranteed throughout the entire territory of the Union. Constitution of the Universal Postal Union. Even of default or event of default means any of the following. And remember, it's the events that are posted to the accounts. The financial institution fails to repay. How come we're talking about repay? What has been paid? I'm telling you, folks, it is already prepaid. The financial institution fails to repay or satisfy an overdraft or other obligation owed to one or more reserve banks when due and payable. The insolvency of the financial institution, or when a reserve bank deems itself insecure with respect to the financial condition of the financial institution or the financial institution's ability to perform its obligations. See, when you go into them courts and you have that apparator that's apparently expecting the appearance of an apparition, you're the respondent acting as the co-respondent. Oops. You're acting in a banking capacity. You're signing documents that amend insurance policies, which is a requirement for banks to have as an insurance. Banks are required to carry insurance. So in their services, they offer you those insurance documents to sign and step in as surety. And now you have a financial obligation. And when they don't think you're qualified, now they're going to default you. So the next one, financial institution means an institution that is a member bank as defined in Section 1 of the Federal Reserve Act 12 U.S.C. 221, a depository institution as defined in Section 19B1A of the Federal Reserve Act 12 U.S.C. 461 B1A, a U.S. branch or agency of a foreign bank as defined in Section 211.21 B or E of Regulation K, which is 12 CFR 211.21 B or E. Branch or agency of a foreign bank. So you sign up for the Social Security Administration as a foreign entity to do the banking operations as a trustee, and you are a foreign agent operating a foreign bank. An EDGE Act corporation as organized under Section 25A of the Federal Reserve Act, 12 U.S.C. 611 through 614. And that is that if you look at 12 U.S.C. 614, you're going to see that you have to have letters and everything, a charter and all that. And you have to be in communication with the Federal Reserve. And that is the contract with the Federal Reserve as a financial institution. That's your corporate structure. You got to give them a corporate charter. Okay? You have to let them know who your board of directors are. If you haven't had that communication, then you're acting in the same function, but you're not qualified, and they will default you every time. Or a corporation that has entered into an agreement with the Board of Governors to limit its activities to those of an EDGE Act corporation. So this here applies, but you don't have to, or a corporation that has entered into agreement with the Board of Governors to limit its activities to those of an EDGE Act corporation. So it's a limitation. Why would you limit yourself? Any other entity authorized to have a master account with the Reserve Bank. That Social Security card, again, has the Federal Reserve District number with its consequential 8 numbers following. That's a reserve routing transit number for the master account. Financial services means any of the financial services provided by a reserve bank, including the service to fuck you in that exchange of surety when you sign their documents. See, when you go in and open that account, you sign that account thing without reserving your rights properly. You've just signed and amended an insurance policy, folks. And now you've stepped into the place of surety, and the bank gets to benefit on all of those foreign deposits. Pursuant to an operating circular, and includes accounting information services as defined in paragraph 4.3, but not including services that are provided by the Reserve Banks as fiscal agent for the Treasury, and any activities governed by Operating Circular 10, lending. Oh, wait a minute. So you mean fiscal services means any of the financial services provided by a Reserve Bank, any activities governed by Operating Circular 10, lending. So now we're talking about activities and not by who. So who is the lender? I want to ask everybody again, who is the lender? You have to get this through your head, folks. You are the lender. You're taught in the scriptures, if you follow those scriptures, it's taught in those scriptures that you are to be lenders unto the nations. Deuteronomy 15, verse 6. Could very well be, Moose. Could very well be. You ask, I wonder if these are the things people in the secret societies learn. Well, it's certainly something that is not taught in the public schools. That's for sure. So let's continue on. As it says, incident means an event. So when that officer pulls you over alongside the road and he wants to fill out his incident report, it's an event, and he's attaching a financial bond. He is conducting banking operations. He is performing the functions of an agent for a banking institution, a financial institution. By you handing him the driver's license, you are doing the same thing. You have your first agreement. Incident means an event or series of events that causes a reserve bank to determine that misuse or of sensitive consumer information has occurred or is reasonably possible. I don't care that you don't know how to use it. It is sensitive consumer information and it is being misused. Don't you get it? Insolvency means that the financial institution has been closed by order of its supervisory authorities, or a public officer, receiver, custodian, conservator, or the like as appointed for the financial institution. And in every case, folks, you are the appointee. You are the one signing the documents. You are the one that is already authorized to, because you are the one that gave them that name, and they are the one using your name. That the financial institution seizes or refuses to make payments in the ordinary course of business. That the financial institution ceases or refuses to make payments in the ordinary course of business, or any other circumstances that evince the financial institution's inability to pay its debts when due. To pay its debts when due. Well, let's talk about what the debt is, when it's due, and whose debt it really is. Now what's due and when? See, this is the problem with the probated estate, folks. They're administrating a probated estate for financial purposes, through financial channels, with financial means, with financial intent. Every last bit of it. And yet somehow, you're not supposed to administrate a probated estate until after the testator has passed away. So what is anybody doing believing that they have the right to make payments when that ain't supposed to be done until you pass away? Oops. Oops. Otherwise, you lend. Oops. Master account. Master account means the record of financial rights and obligations of an account holder and the ARB with respect to each other, where opening, intraday, and closing balances are determined. A master account is identified by a primary routing transit number. Routing transit number. Now, a master account is identified by a primary routing transit number. And we saw the correspondent. Respondent means a financial institution that settles debt and credit, debit and credit transaction activity for some or all its reserve bank transactions in the master account of a correspondent. Or a financial institution that maintains a balance maintained to satisfy the reserve balance requirement as defined in Regulation D in the master account of a correspondent. Under 12 USC 411, it tells us How Federal Reserve notes are meant for transfers only by transfer agents as advances. So when you make a deposit, you're giving them an advance. They're keeping 10% of it in the account and then turning around and advancing the other 90% as a loan to someone else. The routing transit number, also known as an ABA, American Bankers Association number, is a 9-digit number assigned by the American Bankers Association routing number registrar to identify a financial institution. So when they take your name, the given name, and the family name, and they abstract it from mom, and they put it in their documentation and create a legal name by translating that given name and family name, two names, into one name, a legal name, that also consists of a first name and a last name, not a given name and a family name, but a first name and a last name. And in order to be legal, it has to have both for that presumption in these administrative courts. So the two became one, and that was a translation. And then they attached a 9-digit accounting number. Look at it. It's the one on the back. The one on the front is 11 characters, so that's 11 digits. Dig it? Primary RTN is the routing transit number assigned by the ABA routing number registrar that is associated with financial institution's main office. Generally, a financial institution may only have one primary routing number. Mom was the main office, and they assigned it upon her request. She requested it when she went to that financial institution that has a clerk and a bank account and asked them to do it. Routing transit number, also known as ABA number, is a 9-digit number assigned by the American Bankers Association routing number to identify a financial institution. Like I said, 20 CFR employee benefits 422.103. The individual's name and number identify the record, not the natural person. So the number identifies the financial institution by association, by attachment. Primary RTN is the routing transit number assigned by the ABA routing number registrar that is associated with financial institution's main office. Generally, a financial institution may only have one primary number. Secondary routing RTN is an RTN other than the primary routing number that has been assigned to a financial institution by the routing number registrar. That Social Security number on the front, like I said, that's 11 digits. It's got 2 hyphens in it. But that too, just like the given name and family name that is converted, it too gets converted to a obligor number. And who pays the obligation? The obligor. Well, if the obligor is identified by a number, who's the one that assigned the number? Sensitive consumer information means a consumer's name, address, or telephone number in conjunction with the consumer's social security number, driver license number, account number, credit or debit card number, or personal identification number or password that would permit access to the consumer's account. So when you hand that driver's license over to that nice policy officer, like I said, you're giving him access to an account. Now, he himself doesn't get that access, but it goes through the court system, so that court clerk in the court registry investment system gets access to it and does those very needed conversions in order for them to play their sleight of hand usufruct. Oops. Oops. All validated through the paperwork. If you know what you're talking about, yeah, it's all there. And all you got to do is forensic securities accounting, and it'll all show up. And if you know what you're talking about, you can point it all out. If the Reserve Bank or any other party that holds sensitive consumer information as an agent of the Reserve obtains such information in the course of providing financial services. In the course of providing financial services. So again, that officer on the side of the road is providing financial services, and he's going to state so by putting a financial amount on that citation, that incident report. Drop the StreamYard link down in the chat for anybody that wants to join the chat or join the panel. Would certainly appreciate it, as we've still got a ways to go yet. Would be awesome to have somebody up here to discuss. The terms are defined within this circular, so we're going to find out some other terms here evidently as well. Master account, as except as provided below, a financial institution may maintain only one master account with its ARB. Debit and credit transaction activity of the financial institution or the financial institution's respondents with or through any reserve bank, regardless of location, is settled in the financial institution's master account. That's where settlement takes place, folks, in the master account. A financial institution may have only one master account, except that it may retain for a transitional period not to exceed 12 months. That's a 1-year contract, folks. And notice they called it a transitional period. Freedom of transit, so that you may transition. This is called development. They have to allow you to develop. You cannot be fully qualified immediately. So if they have a plan to help you develop, then why aren't they educating you on how to develop? I want to ask everybody, if it takes a strong people to provide a strong nation, how strong do you think the United States of America is if they have a reading comprehension of 7th or 8th fucking grade? Do you think that makes great bankers? There's obviously a distinct difference. And I urge people to understand what's going on. If you don't know the first thing about banking, why are you handing all your banking shit over, or your financial shit over to somebody else that doesn't give a fucking rat's ass about you? And if you think they do, check again. Go ask one of them if you can talk to them in the back room about your private estate, and see how much you have to learn just to get in the back office to talk to one of these people about it. Because they're not going to want to let you. I don't know what you're talking about. I don't know what you're talking about. I guarantee you, the CEO, the chief executive officer of the bank, knows damn well what you're talking about, because he's held to the scrutiny of these laws, regulations, and everything. And so when some yahoo comes along and claims some false creditor and takes $3,800 out of your account, you get to hold his balls to the fire by letting him know, hey, somebody committed a felony with sensitive consumer identification information, and you're not going to do anything about it when you have a duty. That could cost you your job. It might even cost you your life, according to their laws. See, when they don't do something about it, it's the obverse of threatening to use or abuse the legal system. It's the obverse. Now they're saying, well, we're not going to let you use it. We're not going to let you use it for your benefit. Anytime, Kara. Thank you kindly, sister. So let's get back to it. So we know that everything's settled in a master account according to this. And it says a financial institution may have only one master account, except it may retain for a transitional period not to exceed 12 months the master account of an acquired, failed, or non-surviving financial institution with which it has merged or consolidated. So if mom's that prior failed financial institution and you merge with it, does that sound familiar? Remember, I've been saying about that. That's that statement of live birth that's supposed to finance everything, but doesn't have a financial statement of intent. It's not backed. So now that you can go back and recognize that and merge with it, say, hey, yeah, here's the one that was supposed to continue on. Somehow nobody ever taught me about it, so it looks in the record as if though it was abandoned, and so therefore you get to administrate it. But hey, I'm alive. I'm right here. Yeah, that's mine. You know, that thing you're holding, in REM, the thing you're holding, that's actually mine. You've been misadministrating it because I'm not actually in your administration. So we need to move that. We need to transition it from here to here. We need to take it out of your holding and put it in the proper master account. Global Postal Trust Services, wherein it will be ledgered with the general ledger so that the general ledger is kept in balance with you. See, everything you've been doing all your life has been creating an out of balance debt against the general ledger. That's the correction. The ARB may restrict the use of such an account as it deems necessary or appropriate, and may require that the financial institution execute a security agreement covering multiple master accounts. A security agreement covering multiple master accounts. I'll have to dig deeper into this. I don't know why they would have you execute a security agreement covering multiple master accounts, other than if you were to have your assets set up and everything and done it correctly, you would have it set up for a trust that would execute your property to multiple beneficiaries. That is just my presumption, my take on it. Because again, like I said, it's a continuation of a trust account, and nobody's closing the public side and transferring all the credits to the private. A U.S. branch or agency of a foreign bank, an EDGE Act corporation, or an agreement corporation, there's a new one, huh, folks, may maintain a single master account. And I've got this other stuff pulled up, folks. I've done my research on this stuff. So I'm going to continue on with these videos like I do on a regular basis. Hopefully I'll be doing them 9 o'clock every night, Sunday through Saturday. But generally, I've got enough research to show you all this stuff that's already going on. Agreement Corporation is pulled up in Investopedia. EDGE Act Corporation pulled up in Investopedia. All kinds of information that I've already done my research on, folks. So it's an interesting thing what this Agreement Corporation is and what an EDGE Act Corporation. Okay? So we'll be looking at those in the future. May maintain a single master account, or it may maintain a master account for each group of offices located in the same state, same Federal Reserve District. An ARB may, in its discretion, allow multiple master accounts in other situations. If a financial institution is allowed to have multiple master accounts, any reference in this circular to master account should read as masters or master accounts. Sounds familiar to 1 U.S.C. 1, words denoting gender, number, gender, and so forth, wherein it says that the singular imports the plural and the plural imports the singular. So it's something to be conscious of at all times, just so you know. Transaction reporting. A financial institution may request its ARB to have certain debit and credit transaction activity and service fees segregated for reporting purposes. This is what they were talking about earlier. They segregate certain things for their reporting purposes and then tell you, well, we're required to report, but you're not. But the information that you give them says, okay, well, now we have a route that we've got information that we can use, and of course it's regulation, and he presented an ID saying he's an agent. So now we can enforce it on him too. And I assure you folks, that's exactly how it works. And we see this in the next sentence, as a general matter, because you are part of the general public. So as a general matter, you are subject to it. That is the subject matter, general, and it's all military. Again, it's a military banking institution, folks. Just like it's a military hospital, military education system, all of it. Such segregation is based on secondary routing numbers or routing transit numbers used in a specific transaction. Secondary RTNs may be used to identify a branch or an acquired or merged financial institution. Or an acquired or merged financial institution. What do you think that is, folks? The merger happened already once when you were born. This is a secondary routing transit number for the trust that mom's already involved in. And now she created another trust and a secondary routing number. In case the state has to take care of that baby because mom passes away, they have a second route they can take. Oops. It's all taking advantage of that probate estate because nobody's placing a living will in making a declaration of a living will, of a living heir, of the living word, of the living God. Or otherwise identify groupings of debit and credit transaction activity. A financial institution that wishes to establish information reporting by routing number should consult with its ARB for further information on the reporting structures that are available and any limits on such reporting. Location of account holders. Financial institution may apply to open a master account with the Reserve Bank in the Federal Reserve District in which the financial institution is located. A financial institution's location is specified in Regulation D. Under Regulation D, a financial institution is located in the Federal Reserve District specified in its charter or organizing certificate. Now remember what I said about development and transitioning? That is an organizing, means it's in the phase of being organized. Did you catch that? See, it's important to understand your definitions and getting a thesaurus out to see what the meanings are and the very distinct differences. Here we see that the organizing certificate is based on that financial statement or that certificate of live birth that mom made without a financial statement of intent. Yet there's an organizing certificate. This is the birth certificate. Unless the Board of Governors has determined otherwise. The financial institution shall not apply its ARB of a location change within a reasonable amount of shall notify its ARB of a location change within a reasonable amount of time after the regulatory approval of such move, but in any event prior to the date such move is effected. Establishing a master trust or master account, except for a U.S. branch or agency of a foreign bank. In order to establish a master account with its ARB, the board of directors of a financial institution must pass resolutions that authorize certain individuals to conduct business on behalf of the financial institution. Authorized individuals. Authorized individuals. That's what the Social Security is doing. It names the individual. The individual's name and number identify the record. And so the individual, Keith Little, on the Social Security number, or on the Social Security accounting, with its number, is that said thing. It's the authorized representative. It's the respondent. It's the correspondent. It's the one that has the obligations. The financial institution must provide its ARB with a certificate of board resolutions as well as an official authorization list which identifies authorized individuals. This again is at 12 U.S.C. 611 through 614 they were talking about earlier. I've mentioned 614. When you read that, it shows that you have to have a communication with the Federal Reserve, provide them with a charter, provide them with a number, with your board of directors, the authorized individuals, all of this. This is what it's telling us. An authorized individual must then execute a master account agreement, or if permitted by the ARB, such other agreement that binds the financial institution to this circular. Did you catch that, folks? I'm sorry, I didn't have that up. Authorized individuals, an authorized individual must then execute a master account agreement in the form of Appendix 1, or if permitted by the ARB, such other agreement that binds the financial institution to this circular. That's a bond, folks. If you're not already bound to this circular, then there is no bond. That's what the birth certificate is for. It's to make that said binding. Remember, folks, I've said many times that certificate of live, or the statement of live birth at the hospital that has mom's informant signature on it has no financial statement of intent. It is then attached to a legal name and thereby is creating a file number with the state. That file number is going to be on the birth certificate, and you're supposed to take that certificate of live birth and the birth certificate, put them together, and attach your statement of financial intent according to this circular, binding this circular to make sure that sensitive consumer identification information is not passed around. And again, this complies with both the Federal Reserve's statement on customer identification programs exemption program, saying that, goodness gracious, you don't need the name, you can provide a number in lieu of the name and address, just like 19 CFR 149.3 data elements. A widely recognized, commercially identifiable number may be used in lieu of the name and address. And it all concurs with the Patriot Act. Oops. I urge people to start doing your research. It's very important. The next one, a U.S. branch or agency of a foreign bank must execute the Foreign Banking Institution Account Agreement and provide resolutions as well as U.S. and foreign opinions of counsel that are acceptable to the Administrative Reserve Bank. This is not saying anything about what you must do. This is what the banks must do. But again, you have to learn this stuff so you can understand what they're doing so they can't screw you. So you can make your master agreement. The Foreign Banking Institution Account Agreement and the additional required documentation are available upon request from the Foreign Financial Institutions, ARB. This is what we're supposed to be asking them. I need a Foreign Banking Institution Account Agreement and the additional documentation required so I can open my own private trust account. This is based on a merger. Again, remember the merger is the, let me pull it up here. Where is it? Where is it? Oh, I'm on the wrong one. Merger means any transaction in which, any transaction in which a credit union transfers all or substantially all of its assets to a bank. Now, as we discussed, you don't have to actually transfer all of your assets, but merely just one. And that merger, that credit union, is the union that you have with your mom, and you're both creditors. That's a credit union, and you're making a claim on that documentation that fails the agreement. And now you're going to bring it into agreement. And when you bring it into agreement, it's to help the banks recognize that you are the lender, not them. Understand this stuff, folks. A reserve bank has discretion in deciding whether to provide a financial institution with access to a master account and may require a financial institution to provide additional information and documentation to the Reserve Bank to support its decision-making. A financial institution must execute a master account agreement in the form of Appendix 1 to open a master account. By opening or maintaining a master account, a financial institution agrees to be bound by all the provisions of this circular and of all other Federal Reserve Bank operating circulars, as amended from time to time, that cover services that it obtains from any reserve bank. Each master account agreement is subject to approval by the financial institution's Administrative Reserve Bank. So I want to ask everybody, if it's the Global Postal Trust Services, and it's the banks that have all the postings of the events and incidents related to the sensitive consumer identification financial institution respondent correspondent, isn't that a valid agreement already if you've got a postal trust account or an enterprise payment system account with the Global Postal Trust Services? I mean, it is one of their services is the online electric accounting. I would assume that that agreement would already be in that accounting, and it would be superior to the Federal Reserve Agreement, as it would be an international account and therefore an international treaty. See, that's what backs all this stuff is the international treaties. In case you didn't understand that, we read that here last week sometime in regards to the Constitution, laws of the United States, or treaties. These people are subject to those. So let's get into it with the settlement and service fee relationship for the respondent and co-respondent. An account holder may agree to act as a correspondent and allow its master account to be used to settle certain transactions and service fees for a respondent. Again, there's that correspondent and respondent. What are they? It's where you switch hats. That respondent is the one that's named as a legal entity. You're the correspondent. You're the one that's supposed to direct the master accounting. You're supposed to direct the routing and the transitioning. To establish a correspondent-respondent relationship, the correspondent-respondent both must execute a transaction and service fee settlement authorization form. So the master account is going to be the respondent, and that's going to be held by the bank. You're the correspondent. The bank has to respond to the federal regulations. You are a correspondent to help bring them into compliance. That's how I look at this anyway. I firmly believe that's how you should look at it. These people don't have the knowledge, and you have to gain the knowledge so you can be the correspondent respectively and put them in compliance. A separate transaction, excuse me, and service fee settlement authorization form is necessary for each correspondent-respondent relationship, except that a respondent will not be required to execute a new form when its named correspondent chooses to settle to another financial institution's master account. A separate transaction and service fee settlement authorization form is necessary for each correspondent-respondent relationship, except that a respondent will not be required to execute a new form when its named correspondent chooses to settle to another financial institution's master account. So this goes in line. It's telling you, you need to make the agreement. Because these guys will not be required to execute a new form. Each executed transaction and service fee settlement authorization form is subject to approval by the ARB of the correspondent and the ARB of the respondent. Correspondent-respondent relationships cannot be established for Fedwire funds service transactions, Fed funds checks, and custodial inventory program transactions, which must settle in a financial institution's own master account. Notice it's saying it must settle in a financial institution's own master account. And nevertheless identify a correspondent in order to settle some or all of its debit and credit transaction activity. See, they're always going to say it's your debit and credit transaction activity as a correspondent. And the respondent is the one that's regulated and can designate different correspondents to settle financial services. So that when that bank gets a garnishment and believes that somebody else has already settled it, and it's false, except as prohibited or otherwise restricted by an applicable operating circular. By executing the transaction and service fee settlement authorization form, the named correspondent agrees to allow its master account to be used to settle certain transactions and service fees for the named respondent, as well as for any other financial institution that is currently using the named respondent as its correspondent, as designated in a transaction and service fee settlement authorization form. So again, if you have a trust account and you're the correspondent and you have beneficiaries, they would be named as financial institutions currently using that same transaction and service fee settlement authorization form. So I have an account, my wife has an account, our 3 children have accounts, but they're all under mine. Okay? The named correspondent is not required to execute this subsequent transaction and service fee settlement authorization form between its respondent and the other financial institution, because it's already there and you're listing them as currently using your agreement. In the event that a receiver is appointed for an insolvent correspondent or an insolvent respondent and another financial institution, acquiring financial institution, enters into an agreement with the Reserve Bank in which the acquiring financial institution agrees to continue the insolvent correspondent's or insolvent respondent's financial services pursuant to the applicable operating circulars, meaning that you agree that they're insolvent. I do not recognize that, or do not recommend that. In this sort of situation, this is where we're supposed to stand up and herald the value. I'm not taking over an insolvent account. That doesn't make sense. In the case of an insolvent respondent, the correspondent agrees that its master account can continue to be used to settle for those debit and credit transactions for the acquiring financial institution that were designated in the transaction and service fee settlement authorization form submitted by the insolvent respondent. Okay? So just like there's no financial statement of intent, there is no service fee settlement authorization form submitted either. So everything is being acted upon by presumption, every last bit of it. In the case of an insolvent correspondent, the respondent agrees that those debit and credit transactions that were designated in the transaction and service fee settlement authorization form to settle in the insolvent correspondent's master account will be settled in the correspondent's acquiring financial institution's master account, as if the acquiring financial institution were a party to that transaction and service fee settlement authorization form. These settlement obligations continue until the correspondent, respondent, or the acquiring financial institution terminates the relationship pursuant to Section 2.10. A correspondent is responsible at all times for understanding and reviewing the debit credit transaction activity of respondents settling to its master account. The ARB is not responsible for maintaining a list of respondents that settle to an account holder's master account or for notifying a correspondent if one of its respondents agrees to act as a correspondent to another financial institution. So as a correspondent, you have no authority to do any settling, and the respondents are doing it for you, and yet placating that you owe the debt, and so it's got to come out of your pocket, as if though it's not being held against the master account. Correspondent respondent pass-through relationships. I've spoke on this before as well. You're not supposed to have a checking account. You're not supposed to have a savings account. You're supposed to have a pass-through account. This concurs with the freedom of transit guaranteed throughout the entire territory of the Union so that you may pass through the territories. It concurs with not entering things into the United States mails, but constructing them in such a way that they pass through the mail. Correspondent-respondent pass-through relationships. A pass-through relationship allows a respondent to maintain its balance maintained to satisfy the reserve balance requirement, as defined in Regulation D in the correspondence master account. A balance in the correspondence master account represents a liability of the reserve bank solely to the correspondent. A balance in the correspondence master account represents a liability of the reserve bank solely to the correspondent and is subject to the correspondent's order, regardless of whether the funds represent balances of another financial institution that have been passed through the correspondent or correspondent's own funds. Correspondent or correspondent's own funds. You are the lender unto the nations. You are lending, but not being treated as such. You've been signing documents that swap your position as surety. You're making endorsements that are amendments to an insurance policy, and now you've stepped into it as a surety. To establish a pass-through relationship, both the correspondent and the respondent must complete a pass-through agreement in the form of Appendix 3. Each executed pass-through agreement is subject to approval by the ARB of the correspondent. A reserve bank may terminate any pass-through relationship in which the correspondent is deficient in its record keeping or other responsibilities. You have to be the one to make sure everything is accurate, folks. You have to be the one to bring these people into compliance. You have to be the one, Neo. Fed fund checks. An account holder may draw checks against its master account. This is your drawing rights. You may draw checks against its master account. It's a drawing rights. When you sign a promissory note, you're asserting your drawing rights to go to the federal discount window, as we saw earlier. But that's one of the services that they segregate, and they are responsible for the discount window themselves. So when they go to the discount window with your documentation, they are getting the credits, without a doubt. If the Fed fund checks bear the signature of an authorized individual, again, that's that Social Security account that says you are the authorized representative, known as an individual under 5 U.S.C. 552A, records maintained on individuals. A reserve bank is under no obligation to honor a Fed funds check if it is not signed by an authorized individual, or if the master account does not contain sufficient funds to cover the amount of the Fed funds check, in addition to any other obligation the financial institution owes to any reserve bank. A reserve bank may pay a Fed funds check drawn on the master account and signed by any authorized individual, even if the Fed funds check directs payment to the order of the drawer or to any other person. So if you are the drawer and you want to give them a directive by drawing out your check and you have them pay it to you, That's what they're supposed to do, regardless if it's made out to the drawer or any other financial institution. So think about this stuff, people. They're telling you what you're supposed to be doing. Learn it. A reserve bank may pay a Fed funds, or excuse me, 2.10. This is the one I was interested in. Terminating a master account agreement, pass-through agreement, settlement authorization form, or other agreement. Any executed and accepted master account agreement, transaction and service fee settlement authorization, pass-through agreement, or other agreement executed by an authorized individual of a financial institution and relating to a financial institution's master account, other account agreement, is binding on its successors and assigns and continues in effect until amended or terminated as provided in this circular or otherwise provided in the agreement. So you've got MOM, which is the other account agreement, and is binding on its successors and assigns. So you're bound by your mom's account first and foremost. But again, like I said, that account was never given a financial statement of intent. There is no such agreement as we see here, and therefore an agreement needs to be established. An account holder may terminate its master account only by giving the reserve bank not less than 5 business days prior written notice. The notice must indicate the date upon which the account holder desires to close the account holder's master account and provide instructions for the transfer of any remaining balance in the master account. I'm telling you, folks, people, this is a public banking system, and you can do private banking. It's called offshore bank accounts. Greetings, Russ. How you doing tonight, brother?
Good, brother. How are you? Hey,
Global.
have you heard of the master commissioner? Have you familiar with that term?
Well, that would be like the county commissioner. He's the tax agent.
Well, I'm looking at I had the deal down there in Kentucky, and I'm looking at the master commissioner here, and they you sure? I'm wondering if they're the ones that's responsible here for this. It I I'm wondering if they're the ones responsible.
I'm gonna check it out here.
Give me 1 second. Where was I at here? President and Director, Lawyers Mutual Insurance Company of Kentucky, 1995 to present. Executive Committee, 2001 to present. President, 2008 to President. Master Commissioner, Carroll County in the 15th Judicial District, 1989 to present. Member, Kentucky Supreme Court Rules Committee up until 2018. And then it goes on. This lady, member of the Carroll County Foster Care, member of Lieutenant Governor's Commission, Special Justice Supreme Court, teaching appointments, certified instructor Kentucky Real Estate Commission, adjutant professor Northern Kentucky University.
Yeah, it's all military. That's what commission is, and that's why you saw the adjutant professor
Uh,
there.
treasurer and legal advisor, the Educational Excellence Foundation of Carroll County. Legal advisor, Carroll County High School mock trial team.
Yeah,
Member,
mock
Carroll.
trial. That's where they practice these court cases, folks. They hold mock
Treasurer,
trials.
treasurer of the Carroll County Arts Board, control of the library, everything.
Yeah, it's like I said, it permeates every aspect of your life, folks. Every last bit of it, because they require your Social Security number to go open a fucking library account, right?
Yep,
It
mind blowing.
is. It is. It is. So let's look at this again. We still got a bit to go. We're only halfway through, and it's already been an hour and a half. Yeah, successors and assigns. That's that statement of live birth at the hospital that you are a successor to, and continues in effect until amended or terminated as provided in this circular or otherwise provided in the agreement. And again, like I said, it was never actually affected or valid, even though it's had its effects. So those effects are debits and credits that are already ledgered. So it's a matter of restructuring so that those credits can be released in a transfer to another financial institution. An account holder may terminate its master account only by giving the Reserve Bank not less than 5 business days prior to written notice, and the notice must indicate the date upon which the account holder desires to close the account holder's master account and provide instructions for the transfer of any remaining balance. So when we go in and we correct the record, there's going to be a balance left over. You've paid credits into that system. Your Social Security payments and FICA are listed as insurance credits. They are still sitting there. They also have unearned income. There's other things that are listed that these funds go to that nobody's aware of because they're sitting in a CAFR account. Okay? That's a state account. Social Security Administration is an administration of a Reserve Bank account, and that's why that Reserve Bank account number, routing number, is on the back. Reserve Transit routing transit number is on the back of your Social Security card. A respondent may terminate a transaction and service fee settlement authorization or pass-through agreement by giving its ARB not less than 5 business days prior written notice, unless a shorter period of notice is agreed to in writing by its ARB or except as otherwise specifically provided in another Reserve Bank operating circular. The correspondent may terminate a transaction and service fee settlement authorization or pass-through agreement by giving its ARB and its respondents not less than 1 business day prior written notice to the other parties, except as otherwise specifically provided in another Reserve Bank operating circular. So they're basically just telling you, all you got to do is go let them know that you're going to terminate any agreements that might be had so you can restructure and put forth a new pass-through agreement. This has to do with the renaming and everything, coming up with a new name and all that. You're going to cancel everything that's already there because it's been in error. We're going to correct and settle everything, clear all the accounts, and the remainder credits are going to be transferred, reverted. The remainders are going to be reverted back to the principal under a new name, which is a merger. And again, merger means any transaction in which a credit union transfers all or substantially all of its assets to a bank. And that bank doesn't have to be that Federal Reserve Bank. Post office is a banking institution. It is a financial institution, and it is tied directly to the general ledger and the global postal trust services. The term merger includes any purported conversion of a credit union to a bank if the purported conversion is conducted pursuant to an agreement between a pre-existing bank and the credit union that provides. The credit union will not conduct business as a standalone bank, and the purported conversion will be followed by the transfer of all or substantially all of the credit union's assets to the pre-existing bank. And that asset is just a collateral documentation. The assets are actually held in escrow or in use. You know, your assets are private and they're in use. That's an asset. So you don't actually transfer them to the bank for them to use or hold. What you do is you transfer the identity of those assets through collateral documentation. So let's continue on. Termination of a financial agreement, a financial institution's agreement or authorization form, master account, or access to financial services under this section does not affect the financial institution's responsibility for liability or obligation incurred by the financial institution to a reserve bank before or on the effective date of the termination in connection with the financial institution's master account or access to financial services. Risk controls and conditions on settlement arrangements, accounts, and financial services. This is the insurance. Risk control is insurance. Insurance is much like a hold harmless indemnification agreement. Notwithstanding any provision to the contrary in section 2.10, a financial institution may be required by its ARB to maintain at all times settlement arrangements acceptable to its ARB. Administrative reserve banking. Again, the Judicial Officer Department is a neutral and independent forum within the United States Postal Service as a registered agent of the Global Postal Trust Services, of which all postings of events and incidents are accounted for through the Federal Reserve System. It's the Federal Reserve system that is tied to the administrative ledger. It is the Postal Service that is tied directly to the general ledger. Very distinct. The ARB may, among other things, set certain conditions or limitations on such financial institutions' capacity to terminate its master account or correspondent-respondent relationship under this section. In addition, the ARB may require a financial institution that engages in certain transactions to maintain adequate balances with the Reserve Bank in such amount as the ARB determines, as permitted by the first paragraph of Section 13 of the Federal Reserve Act and policies of the Board of Governors. Federal Reserve Act and policies. They have no law. It's policy. It's acts. And as long as you act like a Federal Reserve agent, they're going to keep duping you. In addition, the ARB may require a financial institution that engages in certain transactions to maintain adequate balances. Oops, wrong one. A reserve bank shall have the right, in its discretion, to transfer funds from an account holder's master account to a separate account and to hold those funds after a master account has been terminated in accordance with Section 2.10 in order to cover potential future claims arising from the financial institution's use of financial services. In addition to the right to terminate a master account or access to financial services under Section 2.10, a reserve bank may restrict or limit a financial institution's use of its master account or access to financial services, or require that the financial institution submit additional information as a condition of its continued use of its master account or access to financial services. What we're going to talk about here now is the creation of that sensitive consumer information. The sensitive consumer information is the name. And what they're doing is they're using your name in a usufruct by changing it to a legal name for their purposes. But they still got it from you. They did not create the name. They translated a creation that was already made. And they have no copyright, patent, trademark, trade name rights to it, except for the fact that you keep signing these documentations saying that you do. You got to quit that. You got to learn how to take that back and say, no, I'm not going to allow you that interest in that name anymore. Boy, they are tagging me hard. So anyway, it's a matter of knowing that you have certain rights and interests in things, and they have used your ignorance to swap that. And what it comes down to is if they try to close out your master account and say that they're not going to give you financial services, according to this, then what I pose is that that sensitive consumer information that's being abused is exactly that. They have no copyright, and if they're not going to close the account, then you can effectively close it yourself through your own copyright obligation letter. Or copyright notice letter. Copyright, what did they call it earlier? Copyright transfer. Copyright transfer. Let me see here. Yeah, copyright transfer agreement. And I think that's one of those kind of agreements where you're letting them know that the name is one thing and the routing number is the other. See, they're using that name in conjunction with that routing number, which is the obligor. And if you have control of the name because it's your name and you only allow the use of the name for certain transactions, then they can't use that obligor number unless you say so. That's the name. And they're using their number system is their creation, but the name is a creation that your mom and dad came up with, and they're using that as an abstract. They abstracted that information and created consumer information.
Hey, Keith.
Uh-huh.
I see here the Master Commissioner are state-appointed elective offices. President and director of that Lawyers Mutual Insurance Company, the Master Commissioner, they're members of the Kentucky Banking Association Bank Council Division, state-appointed elective offices, president and director. They're the ones doing it in the county.
Well, yeah, and that's the resident determination. Even though you're doing it through the city, it's at the county level. When you put in a change of address, it's for the county level, and it's see, the county is the one that's going to commission everything under the foreign trade zone, but it's the municipality that is known by a mayoral form of government that issues the municipal bonds in your name, and that's the copyright thing. You're the one saying that they have the right to do it by opening a bank account, by opening that SS5, by getting a driver's license, signing your kids up for school. You do it for them right there. The birth registration. Those are all accountings of events, and they have to be banked on. They have to be levied up. That's what banking is. It's levying. You have to learn how to leverage.
Yeah.
Let's see here. The next part is maintenance of agreements and other records. So you see what happens there? Maintenance of agreements and other records. Now you have a maintenance obligation. You have to maintain those records. Like I said, they expect you to be accurate in your record keeping, because if you're wrong and you write a check that overdrafts, then they have to cover it. Okay? An account holder must maintain all master account agreements and all other reserve bank account agreements continuously as official records of the financial institution. A copy of the master account agreement, this circular, any other account agreement, amendments thereto, and a copy of the relevant portions of the minutes of the meeting. Again, saying that you have to be organized in such a corporate capacity that you have a secretary that maintains a record of the minutes of the meeting, that which the board of directors does its business. It doesn't happen. You're not that kind of entity. Yet they're holding you to such entity regulations as if though you are. Got to fix the identification. It is not developed as it was meant to. It did not continue into a financial institution. Though it was making performing financial functions, it was never taught. He was never taught. We were never taught to operate as a financial institution, to know all this stuff. No one ever taught us. At which the financial institution's governing body authorized execution of the account agreements shall at all times be kept together in one place. The financial institutions Okay, how long was I out? How long was I out?
I'd say about 5 seconds.
Oh, okay. So when it comes to settlement, we're going to continue on with that tomorrow night. We've been here hour and 40 minutes, and we're going to cut her out for tonight. I don't like making these too long, but like I said, this circular has a lot of information, and I hope you comprehend what we've gone over tonight. If not, watch it again until you do. Keep watching. And then tomorrow night we'll be back with settlement and the rest of it. And what do you got anything else for us tonight, Ross?
No, brother, I came in late, but we may see you tomorrow night.
All right. Because we're still certainly open to discuss anything, but copyright transfer agreement, common law copyright name. No, it's just a copyright agreement, copyright transfer agreement. You don't even have to have a copyright. It's just that the fact that it's copyrightable and nobody else can copyright it but you. So you don't need a copyright. What you need is a copyright transfer agreement that you keep all the interest in the copyright, or however you want to do it. You got to be You got to be savvy about this stuff. And so when we're coming up with all of these, all of this new information, everything that most people aren't familiar with, you got to realize it's a matter of discernment. Don't believe me. Don't believe your neighbor. Don't believe the government. Do your research so you know. So even when I tell you that you don't need the copyright, it's a matter of making a copyright agreement because nobody else can copyright my name. It's kind of ambiguous there because what about Keith Little? Can't he copyright his name? I mean, there's more than one Keith Little. And again, this is why Prince, the artist formerly known as Prince, changed everything and used a symbol because there is no name like it. And again, the language we use is symbolic itself. That's why I say research the names and find out what it means. It means something. It symbolizes something else. John doesn't mean just John. It means something else. Keith doesn't mean just Keith. It means something else. So think about this stuff, folks. And remember, I love you, but I don't give a rat's ass whether you love me back. So may God bless you and have a good night. Good to see you again, Russ. And we'll see everybody next time. God bless.